Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's chronicle is people who have actually had intercourse with a step relative. What was the aftermath? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Story 1. My coworker got his nephew a job with our company to help straighten him out and let him live with him. A few months later, he starts talking about how he's going to be a granddad cause his 18-year-old daughter who lives at home is pregnant. We later found out his nephew was banging his daughter on the regular and was the father of his grandbaby. The nephew got fired for failing a drug test not even 6 months into the gig. Pretty sure he ended up getting kicked out of their house too shortly thereafter. Story 2. Alright, here we go. So, I meet a girl. Meet her mom and dad. The girl and I have intercourse and dated for several months. She gets pregnant. I join the Navy to support my new family. I leave for boot camp and she starts sleeping around, so we break up. During this time her mom goes crazy. Her dad leaves her mom. He then starts seeing my mom. They get married. Boom. My ex is now my stepsister and my son is now my nephew. Welcome to West Virginia, yo. Story 3. The outcome was dramatic and incredibly tragic. I had a colleague once who drunkenly confessed to sleeping with her stepbrother. Eventually it developed into a serious relationship. Her parents got to know and desperately tried to get them to break up. My colleague ended up dating her stepbro in secret. It's an open secret in the office at this point. Awkward, because the stepdad was also in upper management. Anyway, her parents find out again and try to get them to break up a second time. It all gets rather public and ugly and quite embarrassing for her mom and stepdad, who are now senior figures in the industry running their own company. My colleague tells us that she's been given ultimatums by her mom. Doesn't describe what they are. Suddenly, she stops showing up to work and emails her resignation. She tells HR that she's moving to the US to find some peace. The colleague also texts some folk at work to tell them that she's had enough of the drama and moving away. A few weeks pass and there's no news from her until her stepbro boyfriend starts contacting all her work friends. I wasn't contacted, but some of my teammates were. Stepbro is desperately trying to get in touch with her. She's broken up with him via text. He wants to know if anyone's heard from her. He doesn't believe that she now lives in the US and that she'd go without telling him. Everyone writes him off as a guy who couldn't handle the rejection until he goes to the police and files a missing persons case. Police actually made a few inquiries, to everyone's surprise. It doesn't happen often because they usually don't give a fuck. This is still a developing country after all. In the end, the cops write the stepbro off as a lovesick loon and everything settles down. For a while at least, stepbro has gone crazy, now claiming that he thinks something bad happened to her. Says he's fallen out with his parents over it. No one at work wants to get involved in this family drama, especially since the parents are important people. Things die down again until they don't. Fast forward 2 years and no one's heard from our colleague until the cops come calling. They've arrested her mom's chauffeur on an unrelated charge and he confesses to murdering our colleague, even leads them to the body. He doesn't, however, reveal a motive. The police's first thought was that he was stalking her, at least until they investigated further. Our colleague never went to the US. Turns out the emails she sent weren't from her either. They were sent after her death. The texts, the emails, and the breakup were all from her mom. She covered her tracks after she orchestrated the murder of her own daughter, all because she wouldn't stop dating her stepbrother and was going to marry him. Sorry for the bad grammar. English isn't my first language. I'd forgotten some details. The colleague's mom always had a strained relationship with her daughter. At social events, she often claimed to be her sister, though everyone knew it wasn't true. I think the biological dad was also involved in the murder somehow. The whole thing was one giant clusterfuck. Story 4. My mother passed away, so my brother and I moved in with my father, stepmother, and stepsister. My parents had a brutal divorce, so we were not very close to them. In fact, we didn't see my father for years. Fast forward, my brother, stepsister, stepbrother, and I would play lights out as teenagers. Basically, turn the lights out and start beating the shit out of each other with pillows or anything we could find. I know it sounds like a sick game. Later, when we all played and wondered why I was not getting my hair pulled or punched, I turned on the lights and found my brother and stepsister making out. We stopped playing lights out, but my brother and sister were secretly seeing each until my stepmother found out. Story 5. My uncle married his stepsister when they were teenagers. They had 4 kids together and divorced. Years later, my dad married her. She was his stepsister and younger brother's ex-wife. My cousins became my step-siblings. Uncle lived around the corner. Her kids did not like being told what to do by their uncle. My dad always felt like she treated me and my sister poorly. My grandma threatened to disown my dad several times for marrying her. They were together for about a year before stepmom couldn't handle dad's drinking anymore, and he said he was sick of her kids disrespecting him and her not treating my sister and me well enough. We moved out, but they stayed married for over 10 years. Our cousin and step-siblings weren't as close with us after that, and my sister and I were kinda considered the black sheep of the family. Too bad. I liked being around my cousins so much and I thought my aunt, stepmom, was cool. I was like 10 or 11 at the time though. I can't imagine what those two were thinking when they got together in the first place. The whole thing was confusing, to say the least. Story 6. Our parents got remarried later in life when we were already grown adults. We're both only children, so having siblings was a new experience for us, but we wanted it to work if only for the family's sake. In an effort to grow closer, we decided to go drinking one night, a few months after we met for the first time. She ended up crashing at my place. I offered to take the couch and give her the bed, but she insisted we sleep together in that weird feet-to-head setup. My drunk ass promptly went to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night to find us spooning, and me with a serious erection poking her ass. I froze. I didn't know how I got there, what was going on, or how I was going to get out of this gracefully. I had just decided to extricate myself slowly in the hopes that I didn't wake her when it happened. Wiggle, wiggle. She started wiggling her ass against me. On instinct, I started bucking. Tap, tap. Wiggle, wiggle, tap, tap. There was only one way to go from there. We went out that night intending to become closer. Mission accomplished. We fucked a few times a week for 5 to 6 months before we both met other people. During that time we became very close, telling each other our fears and secrets, and generally being what you think of as brother and sister. Except for that other thing. Friends have remarked about how close we are, especially for how short a time it's been. Turns out, there's a shortcut for that. You'd think that would be the end of the story, but instead of going our separate ways with the new people in our lives, we ended up realizing we had fallen hard for each other. Now we're dating and trying to figure out how to tell our parents, family, and friends. Might not have that problem for too much longer though. The last time her dad came into the living room where we were hanging out ... Well, first he knocked. Story 7. I'll take things that caused my dad's divorce and destroyed my baby sister's life for $100, Alex. A little backstory. When I was 5 years old, my parents divorced and my dad moved out. For the first couple years I was still pretty close to him. He lived around the corner from us and I was at his house every weekend. Sadly, our relationship pretty much ended when his job transferred him from California to Texas. After his move, I only saw him on holiday. A few years later, he married a woman with 2 daughters around my age. They ended up having a 3rd daughter shortly afterward, and being a resentful 12-year-old living with a rather spiteful mom, I pretty much wrote him off. A couple of holiday visits, and then nothing. Fast forward a few years. I'm 16. My mom has married a total asshole. I have a brand new baby brother and my home life is miserable. A few days after a violent fight between me and my stepdad, I came home from school, walked into my house, and there sat my dad. I hadn't seen him in years, but he'd apparently moved back to California with his family and was there to take me to his new house. My mom had called him. She was done with me. This isn't an intercourse story or a corno, so I'm not going into all of the lurid details, but here's the gist. I was 16, a decent-looking guitar player, and was angry at the world. My oldest stepsister was 15, pretty hot to a 16-year-old, and was no virgin. We hadn't seen each other for years, and before that had only seen each other on a handful of holidays when I was flown out to visit. There was no sibling vibe between us. We were hooking up within a week, and it became a pretty regular, almost daily, thing for about a month. And then, one day, her mom came home from work early, caught in flagrante delicto. Her mom literally walked into my bedroom and caught us mid-thrust. To say she had an instant meltdown would be the understatement of the century. Items were thrown. Words were said. My stepsister curled into a little ball and tried to wish herself to death. Not that it mattered. My stepmom was clearly convinced that I'd corrupted and probably raped her innocent daughter. It was clearly, obviously, all my fault. Shortly after that, my dad came home. That's when my stepmom decided that I needed to go to jail. She wanted to call the police and have me prosecuted for rape. No Romeo and Juliet laws in those days, kiddos. My dad, to his credit, jumped to my defense and got me the hell out of there. The next day I was living with my mom again. That situation still sucked, but at least I wasn't being threatened with prosecution. And then the other shoe dropped. My stepsister was pregnant, and neither she nor her mom believed in abortion. So, I was having a baby. My stepmom flipped out all over again. Actually called the district attorney's office and made a more serious push to get me prosecuted. My dad was completely opposed to it. Between the stress of the pregnant teen in the house and that fight, their marriage basically disintegrated. The baby was adopted out at birth, and we mostly went our separate ways. I still see my now former stepsister occasionally because we still share a common half-sister. We both agree that it was a dumb thing to do, but that our parents, mostly her mom, made the whole thing so much worse than it had to be. We laugh about the stupidity of the whole thing, but there's definitely one thing that we both feel extremely guilty about. Our little sister watched her entire family disintegrate over it. She's 26 years old and doesn't seem to resent us for it. But thinking about that still makes me feel like crap. She was the only one of us that had a shot at growing up in a normal 2-parent household. and we took that away from her because we were a couple of horny teenagers. And before anyone asks, we do not know what happened to the baby. She went to a very good family, but we all agreed that a closed adoption was best for everyone. Story 8. Okay, so my story. I guess I slept with my step-cousin several times over a weekend trip to the river. Her uncle and my mom had been together for many years but never got married. I basically grew up with this girl. We were good friends, and while we were having fun on the river, drinking underage and just doing our version of partying, we made that move. It wasn't discouraged, and honestly, it didn't feel weird because we knew each other so well. We never spoke about it or even met again until I heard from her cousin that she died of an overdose on my mom's couch. I always hid or lied about the story until then. I don't know if I should be embarrassed or not, but I'm not. She was a certain type of girl. Never had a father. Always looking for someone to love, care about her. I feel like I let her down in a way. Jesus, I'm oversharing. I'm sorry if what I did was somehow dirty or wrong. I was just a dumb 16-year-old. Story 9. I have a friend who started dating this girl in college. They have been together a couple of years, things are going good, and their families meet. During their relationship, his parents get divorced and his dad starts sleeping with her single mother. 2 years later, his dad marries her mother. He is pissed, but doesn't break up with his girlfriend cause, they still love each other and all that. But now they've been together 5 to 6 years and she's looking for a ring, but he's freaked out about the whole thing. I don't know what to tell him to do about it, but when he brings it up at the bar, I like to loudly recommend that he just go ahead and marry his sister if he loves her. It's always funny, and it's probably fine. Probably. Story 10. It happened between me and my stepsister. It was extreme awkwardness for several months, but eventually, we just forgot about it. Then her mom and my dad split up, so we hardly saw each other after. So it could have been worse. But I do find that kind of corn pretty nasty, so I guess there are some lasting effects. Story 11. I met a really hot guy about 2 years older than me at a bar one night. We hit it off and flirted the whole night. About a week later, we bumped into each other again and exchanged numbers. We ended up being a couple. A few weeks went by and things were looking good. Slept together a few times and everyone was happy. One night I went out with my dad and his soon-to-be fiancé. My dad had come to me for advice on a ring. They had only been dating for about 6 months. I loved this lady and called her mom. I found out if they married, I would have a stepsister and a stepbrother added to my family, which already had 6 siblings. While we were out, this woman totally freaked out and almost carried me to the bar in excitement. I thought she had too much to drink and wanted to do shots or some shit. We get into the bar and she says she wants me to meet her son, taps this dude on the shoulder, and when he turns around, it's my fucking boyfriend. Best of all, she introduces us saying, "Meet your new brother to me and meet your new sister to him." We just stood there staring at each other, burst out laughing, and carried on drinking on our own. Still did it a few times after the families moved in, but ended it so our parents could have a shot. Our reasoning was that our parents are quite old and might not find someone else, and we were young and had our whole lives ahead of us. Anyways, he fell in love with my then best friend and I fell in love with someone else too. Our parents broke up because this woman turned out to be a Karen level 1000. And we have never seen or spoken to each other since. Not sure if our parents knew, but pretty sure my dad had an idea but never said anything. Story 12. Buckle up, cause I have a ride for you. So I had 2 friends. They fell in love after meeting on a drunken one-night stand. They dated for about 2 years and decided to get married. Now, the girl's family was from Australia, so although they'd met each other's parents, the parents hadn't met before the wedding. So it gets to the actual wedding day. The Australian family is flown in. The English family is there, everyone is sat down, and the wedding proceeds straight to the after party, and unbeknownst to my friends, both sets of parents were in the process of getting divorced. I shit you not, as the meal is taking place, none of the parents are anywhere to be seen. Me and some of the groomsmen, bridesmaids, go hunting for them as the reception was taking place in a huge country villa. 2 bridesmaids find the bride's mom and the groom's dad fucking in a toilet upstairs. While at nearly the exact same time, me and another groomsman find the bride's dad and the groom's mom stoned off their tits and her sucking him off in the makeup and hair room. All the bridesmaids and grooms keep it secret until after the wedding, when we find out the others had been cheating as well. We all lose our collective shit at how funny it is and tell the bride and groom. They are mortified. They just thought they'd been smoking weed, as the smell was undeniable. They didn't realize their parents had gone full partner swap. Anyways, a year later, both parents have separated and are trying to remarry their opposing number, which will make my 2 friends step-siblings twice over. There are 4 parents trying to convince my 2 friends to divorce so they can get married, and one couple is saying they are going to get married anyway whether the kids get divorced or not. Thank you guys once again for watching the full video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know your favorite story in the comments down below. TNH out.